All right, recording and welcome, Isabel. How you doing?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Can't complain out here on Vancouver Island.
Yes.
So you're with Plastic Free YYC, is that right?
Mhm. That's
And
right.
so for those that don't know, that's the airport code for Calgary, right?
That's right, yes.
So why did you choose to call the organization after the airport code, or is it just sort of translate for most people in that area as Calgary?
Yeah, it's actually very customary for folks here in Calgary to refer to the city as YYC, so it's part of the local lingo already, and we liked it short, and it's obviously it rhymes, plastic free YYC, so it just came together very nicely.
And actually, I didn't even notice that until I said it out loud. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this sounds like I'm singing a song. So how long ago did you set up the organization?
Right. So the Plastic Free YYC was launched as a nonprofit back in late 2017. It was actually originated as a blog that my co-founder Brianna had started in 2017 to basically talk to her family and friends mostly about her journey to reduce her own waste and trying to get them on board with waste reduction initiatives. So we met online of all places, and we came together to try to build an organization as a nonprofit that would basically try to strive for pushing for waste reduction policies, practices in our city.
Nice one. I mean, yeah, it's always we need local heroes like yourselves, and no one person or one organization can be anywhere or everywhere at the same time, right? So the more and more specific, like city focused groups like yourselves is exactly what the world needs, and why we were trying to do the Run Against Plastic this year is to go across Canada and meet everyone like yourselves. and
Yes.
and I really like how it starts out just as a personal journey with somebody that started a blog to share with their friends and family of how they're learning through the process, and then that blossoms into an actual registered not-for-profit.
Exactly. And we were very happy to build something in Calgary since we were trying to fill this gap. When you talk about waste, zero waste and waste reduction, the plastic pollution pandemic, people are still thinking very much so about the oceans, right? About the coast, not so much about the prairie regions, about Alberta or Saskatchewan, or really like places that are far away from the coast. So we wanted to fill this gap to talk about the impact that we're having here on our prairie environment, so we could be part of the conversation, refocus the conversation on these regions, and show that we're part of the problem, but also part of the solution. So we're able to have an impact here at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a hard thing having an organization called Plastic Oceans because it has the word ocean in it.
Yes.
And a large section of our country here, even though we have the largest coastline in the world when you include the Arctic, we actually fall into that with, let's call them the uneducated people in the prairies that don't understand that all of those rivers and all of those lakes somehow do feed into the ocean. So, larger pieces will get captured on the shorelines or the riverbanks, but microplastics and such, as soon as it starts micro or photo degrading down, that will all actually lead to the ocean. So
Yes.
we get a lot of kickback from people, especially in Alberta. They seem to, for some reason, be quite vocal if they don't agree with something. Not pigeonholing anyone, I think you can agree. We do get kickback on social media, being like, "Oh, no oceans in Alberta, so we don't need to get engaged." You're like,
That's right.
"Why did you
Exactly.
bother
So
commenting?"
yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we've experienced quite a bit here. So by having our organization come in and really try to refocus that conversation, so it's and then to focus on an environment that where we are, I think it's bringing that focus and it's bringing it back to the front mind of people. And of course, one thing that we're struggling with a little bit more here in Alberta and in other inland regions is with the lack of evidence, the lack of research information and data when it comes to the impact of plastic on our environment.
Yeah.
Thankfully, a research team in MacEwan University, just up north, they did a research study recently, and they found microplastics like kilometers away from Edmonton in a remote area. So we definitely are starting to have data come up, but because I think it's partly because of the work that we do too, in terms of bringing focus to that conversation and advocating for change in our province.
Absolutely. And Actually, I was using a slide a couple of years ago when I started coming back to Canada and doing a couple school presentations. And I was using a slide that was dated back to something, I think like 2013, where it showed microplastics in fish in Saskatchewan. And I
Mm,
really use that to drive it home to people that it's like, it is a problem in any body of water. So, and actually, I was doing an interview with Kylie Best yesterday from Newfoundland. So she's been with the Maritime Institute over there for 11 years. She's actually one of the co-chairs of Canoe. Have you heard of Canoe?
I have not.
It's you really need to sign up to that. I'll send you the link
Oh, great.
because it's a Canadian-wide ocean literacy program, and it's basically just a membership. So you either have individuals or organizations like ourselves, and it's information sharing. And then they have their, global or not global, national sort of AGM conference where everyone can get together and do some information sharing. But they were saying that the 100%, the biggest gap that we need to fill right now is these inland provinces and get that education up.
Mm,
you know, on in Halifax, we've got tons of engagement. Bigger cities and around the Great Lakes, people seem to understand it, and then obviously in BC on the coast, everyone seems to get it.
yes.
Understanding that the rivers do lead into the ocean at least. But yeah, 100%. There's a lot of efforts and a lot of focus right now on the provinces that are inland. So I'll send you that link to Canoe. Definitely sign up to that
Awesome.
because it just basically puts us all together to information share and see what everyone's up to.
That's awesome. Thank you.
No problem. I love it. I haven't read too much about it, but I need to get more now with having a little bit more time. I'm trying to understand it more. But what I'm going to do is actually go into a screen share, and we're going to bring up your website, and maybe you
All
can walk
right.
through what you do and how you achieve getting that consciousness up in Calgary. So screen share is that button. As I said, these are really relaxed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just always, oh, there you go. Awesome.
Okay. So now, why don't you talk us through sort of maybe the services that you provide? So every not-for-profit and charity, for not a lot of people understand this, but I mean, we really are a service provider, right? And even if that's
Absolutely.
information sharing, but quite a lot of times, there's events. So why don't we click on events here? And school presentations and such. But I'll let you tell us what sort of services you get up to, and then everyone
Yeah.
can understand.
Absolutely. So we do strive to engage all sectors of society when we're dealing with the conversation that we're having here in Calgary around waste reduction. So we do try to involve not only Calgarians, but businesses and government representatives as well, since we strongly believe that it's not just up to citizens to make a difference, but we're all part of the problem and all part of the solution.
Yeah,
So we do that in a variety of ways. So of course we have a lot of educational material. So we have our outreach materials that we share on social media, for example. So we have quite a bit of information there. We have, of course, events as well that we host. We're trying to be a little bit creative right now, especially with the current COVID situation. We unfortunately had to cancel some of our in-person event, which was disappointed, but we're trying to pivot to go to different methods instead. So
yeah,
for example, one event that is coming up, and I hope it's posted on here, but we currently are planning an Earth Day. So on April 22nd, neighborhood cleanup. So what we're doing is that, there you go. So we're inviting everyone to get outside, get some, hopefully sunshine by then in Calgary, and get to cleaning their neighborhoods in a safe way by following social distancing uh, rules. So
yeah,
we're inviting everyone to, yes, be part of the movement and be part of the efforts in that way. So we're trying to find really creative ways that we can still engage our community and continue to raise awareness about the issue of plastic pollution, since as we know right now, not only businesses are struggling to reduce their waste, but now there's some more rules and regulations in place that are actually increasing the amount of waste being created. So we're definitely trying to continue on that line by hosting still events and being creative that way. Yeah.
yeah. And actually, it's interesting because we were set to do the cross country tour this year with the Run Against Plastic and following Andy Sward, who has already run across Canada 3 times picking up bottles and cans. And when shutdown started, sorry, I've just came out of the water and I'm just about to sneeze. So luckily we're all distancing and I'm not going to sneeze on anyone, but I'm trying to fight that back. But yeah, we decided to sort of challenge everyone to get out there and still clean up. And it was just at the start of shutdown and people were really sensitive about it. And, we got a lot of kickback for promoting to go to get some fresh air, go outside and just pick up what you find. And then a couple days later, a young boy in Ontario did a nice cleanup, and then he got celebrated in the media for going to taking his time off to clean up his earth. So it's been really tricky to navigate. I've personally found through because the goalposts keep moving every day,
Yep.
not just on how we're going to operate our organizations collectively, but also the messaging that people are going to resonate with. But I'm personally very much on your side with, it's Earth Day. We can follow the rules of social distancing. We can be clean. If you need to use single-use gloves, just dispose of them properly. Just don't litter
Exactly.
them. And get out there. And if everyone can just whatever hashtag at their organization that they're engaged with, if they want to do that and post it, then that's a way that we can quantify it. Not a lot of
Hmm.
people understand that. If you do pick a hashtag for cleaning up, like you have Waste Free Challenge in there. Okay.
Bless you.
With Waste Free Challenge, at least you can look back at that for all those posts on April 22nd, 2020, and know who in Calgary got engaged.
That's right.
I think that's it. We might have another one.
So yeah, we're very excited about this particular event because it's a bit of course a first for us to deal with this kind of challenge. So we are trying to still connect with our community because times are tough right now. And even though we're asked to physically distance ourselves from others, there is no reason why we can't be social with
Yeah.
each other through other methods. So whether it be on social media or by participating in a grand event like this that's gathering people together. So yeah.
See, also tomorrow you've got sort of an online webinar where people can sign up to.
Yes, that's right. It's hosted by a great community grocery store here, Community Natural Foods, that they're hosting this webinar that we're participating in. So inviting everyone to join that. So that'll be again another creative way to connect and share our message. So it's a good opportunity for us.
Exactly. And I think it's an exciting way that people are offering these sorts of things and people can get engaged and learn as well. I mean, we got caught up in this society where everything was so fast paced that for some reason causes seemed to take a back seat and everyone wanted to be involved in something or learn more. But people were getting to be armchair activists and know-it-alls because of reading a headline consistently because we were just inundated with too much information.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's great that people can take the time and they don't have to sit through traffic, they don't have to buy a ticket, or maybe you guys do have a sort of a suggested donation to host these things. But yeah, we're seeing lots of different ideas pop up. But
Yeah, absolutely.
so
No,
is there
it's
anything
exciting.
special on your social page that we should look at, or do you have some sort of themes that you like to do, or?
For social media is really a good opportunity for us to just share targeted messaging with our community. And right now, of course, we're talking quite a bit about what things people can still do dealing with a pandemic. So we're trying to focus on that specifically right now, because as we know, with the new rules and regulations, there's quite a bit of more single-use items being wasted right now. Options are being limited. So for example, some grocery stores have banned reusable bags that you can bring. Coffee stores have banned as well reusable cups. So we're kind of still engaged in a conversation, and we're focusing quite a bit these days on promoting the great local services that are available. So the great local businesses that are still striving to make a difference. And as you can see on our website, there's actually a zero waste directory that
Yeah.
we have, and we're trying to revamp it as we go right now and adding more information to it. But really, the directory is a really good resource for people in Calgary. So we're trying to basically limit that learning curve when it comes to zero waste. Because when I first started my journey, there wasn't this kind of option available or this kind of information out there. So it was kind of difficult for me to figure out where I could find products or services in the city. So we're trying as best as we can to make that information available at people's fingertips. So they're able to really share information, get out there, basically, get the products that they need, and still support our great local businesses that are promoting those alternatives. So we're definitely focusing quite a bit on that these days.
That's an amazing directory, and just so Calgary specific. I love this.
Yeah.
And this is a great thing with technology, and like that, just because there's all these plugins you can do with websites and such, and it makes it quite easy that anyone, like you're saying, they're just getting into the journey and they don't really know where to start, but they can just go onto the map and start figuring out who offers different stuff, and people. It's really surprising. It can be a rabbit hole, but at the same time, there's zero waste in every single industry. It doesn't just come down
Yes.
to food packaging. There's a
Absolutely.
lot of
No,
different.
it's very important, I think, to highlight the businesses that are doing great work and offering those alternatives in Calgary, since as we're dealing with a pandemic, obviously local small businesses are hit particularly hard when it comes to loss of revenue. So supporting those businesses is especially crucial right now. And we're really at a turning point in our history where whichever businesses or services we're supporting now is going to result in the post-pandemic world that we want. So we're really at a we can vote with our wallets that way and make a difference when it comes to what type of services we want to see in the future.
And that's what a lot of people, I hope they starting to understand, is like, we really as consumers get to call the shots, and because there is all this information out there, it's not hard for us to make these educated decisions on what products we are buying.
Yeah.
And going back into small businesses as well, I mean, Amazon's a very convenient service, but right now, because people are now questioning where the source is and if it might be contaminated when it shows up, hopefully that's having them re-look back at local businesses and supporting them. I'm kind of interested here. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping all around your website, but
It's
looking at the
good.
initiatives. So this ban the bag and the last straw, I guess. So how's your momentum going with? Let's pretend that COVID didn't come in, and there
Yeah.
isn't. We've kind of gone backwards a little bit with, as you were saying, you can't use some reusables in places, which is fully understandable at this stage
Hmm.
for just safety reasons. But once we come out the other side, we had made a lot of momentum globally and especially nationally with federal bans being proposed by 2021. But I'm quite interested at how Calgary looks. Do you have bans coming in? Are they getting further?
Yeah, so we've had some really great momentum post COVID-19 when it comes to addressing waste from single-use items. So, of course, as we know, the federal government is still working on the details of their ban. But meanwhile, our municipal government here in Calgary had started developing a strategy to reduce waste from single-use items. So that was to be still to be worked on in 2020. So I'm guessing things have been slowed down and are on hold at the moment. So that's still ongoing. But in the meantime, we've been very happy to see more businesses step up to the plate and really implement their own policies and practices to reduce waste. So we've seen more grocery stores locally that have not just banned plastic, but they're offering other alternatives. So they're offering compostable bags that can be sent to our facility here in Calgary. We have a really good composting facility. So we have that option. They're allowing more reusable bags. So we're on the bag front, we've definitely made some great progress when it comes to this specifically. Oh yes, we haven't updated that
Shut off the screen. Um, Yeah, it's really interesting to see how everyone's taking it differently. I'm sure you're up to date on what happened in Victoria, where Victoria as a municipality pushed through their ban bylaws earlier than most, and then got
hmm
kickback. And they're the ones that had to deal with a lot of the litigation through the plastics industry, saying that they didn't have jurisdiction to do that because it's
Yes.
actually provincial thing that they're allowed to call, as far as it being an environmental hazard. If it's a waste management or a human health risk, then the
hmm
municipality does have the rights to move forward. But as you were
Yeah.
saying, like
Definitely heard about about those developments, and that's quite unfortunate since it's pushing against a movement that is progressive when it comes to reducing plastic waste. So we were definitely disheartened to see the Canadian Plastics Association, Industry Association, to push back on that specifically, because that's just not the way things are moving towards to when you look at other jurisdictions, especially abroad, like Europe. So we're quite disheartened by that. And we were also wondering what it would mean for cities in Alberta. Thankfully, we have some cities here that have already implemented bans on bags. So, for example, something that people don't know is that Fort McMurray was the first city, I believe, in Canada to ban plastic bags back in 2015. And that's not something you think about when you think about Fort McMurray. You don't think about really progressive practices like that. We're definitely looking to see what type of pushback is being put on them. There's other jurisdictions now that have put a ban on bags, like with Tascalin in Alberta. So far so good. We haven't seen so much pushback on those. So we're hopeful that it would be the same in Calgary, but time will tell. But I think we're definitely destined to go in that direction when it comes to waste reduction. So we'll see on which side of history we'll be standing.
Well, it's interesting to say that Fort McMurray was one of the first, because it's always it's a weird thing of like where the motivations come and how a ban gets fast tracked, because India was one of the first in the world as a country to ban bags because due to flooding. So you look at their economic state and the fact that most of the population was using single-use bags for everything, and then they were getting littered everywhere because there was no waste management, and it was clogging drains, and then it was flooding, and there was massive deaths and like destruction. So that's what motivated them to push through a plastic bag ban. It had nothing to do with the fact that turtles are going to eat it and die.
Mm-hmm.
um, but you mentioned earlier that you're starting to see success in Calgary with voluntary businesses, and that was the coolest thing I saw in Victoria, because I know a lot of municipalities all over the country, and especially specifically where I live here in Tofino, they wanted to put towards a ban in on single-use plastics, but because Victoria was wearing all these legal battles, they just kept holding back, and then finally all the businesses just put up their hand and they're like, we'll just do it. And like everyone's like, we don't, like, here's a bylaw that's been drafted, here's the guidelines, we understand how to follow those rules, that's good for us as a community to just, we're all going to do it, like you can't, and if one business out of the whole town or the Chamber of Commerce decides to not engage, then no one's going to really shame them, but everyone's going to know who that one business is, and it doesn't really work in a small town. So what's I've seen, or what I've been happiest about, is just seeing people, the knowledge is there, we understand it's bad as far as like weight volume and such, contributing to marine debris. It's not the highest number, but at the same time, the effects are massive, and it affects so much in our wildlife. So to see people just voluntarily be like, all right, this is the right thing to do, here's the basic guidelines, we can implement that. And it's nice to see with large chain stores and cities just being like, all right, no, not a problem, we can work towards that. So it's, even though the plastics industry is, or their association is pushing back and wasting tons of our tax dollars because it makes our municipalities fight them in the legal system, it's just not good press,
No, it's not.
And it's also then going in other places in the world. When I first showed up in Fiji a bunch of years ago, working on putting in plastic to oil technologies and closed loop apparel, you all of a sudden get pigeonholed as the plastics guy, right? So you're working with the Ministry of Environment, and they're like, oh, well, we know you're going to probably want to talk about a plastic bag ban. It wasn't on my list, but sure. They're like, well, there's no way we can implement one because the plastics industry creates a majority of or too many jobs in the country. So even before 2014, they had already had corporate bullying at the minister level, to just preempt, knowing that people were going to start coming and lobbying for these things. And that was such an interesting thing to go through, because about 2 or 3 years later, I was part of the roundtable discussion with when we ended up getting a plastic bag levy in, where it was just 10 cents a bag. But when you live in a country where people are getting paid $1, $2 an hour, 10 cents affects you at checkout,
For sure.
So we saw a reduction in single-use plastic bags. And there's no one size that fits all, but it's nice to see when you all these other different ways that people have attacked it, and also the reasons behind it. So I'd like to do some
Yeah.
research and find out why Fort McMurray actually fast tracked it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's just because it didn't have the infrastructure
Okay.
to deal with that, and they found that it was quite a bit of litter. So littering when it came to plastic bags. So that became, I believe, that was part of the reasons. Maybe not. Yeah. So I think that was part of the what pushed the
I didn't
ban
be
into it.
prejudiced and jump on that, but I actually did think about that. I was like, well, maybe with the culture of that town, that there was excessive litter, and I found that it was just way easier to just ban them.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
yeah, in other towns, there's a little bit more of an environmental consciousness, or
Yeah.
I don't really want to pigeonhole anyone because, yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to highlight about your organization? Do you guys do a school program, or do you get?
We don't have a formal school program, but we're definitely always interested in connecting with younger generations because they're obviously the future, and they're actually quite well connected when it comes to the environment and protecting our nature basically here. So we love to connect with them. They have always great ideas on how we can reduce waste in Calgary. So we do love to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the kids are a great one because they can be extremely annoying, so once they get, and I mean that in the best possible way, like once they're into something, and I mean, I remember as a kid when I got taught about Earth Day from my grade 4 teacher back in like the mid 80s, and all of a sudden I was an environmentalist just because my teacher explained the reasons. I was like, that makes sense. So you take all that messaging home. So they really are our conduit for information. But we get people that reach out all the time for school presentations, and there's no way for us to facilitate all of them. Another reason why we wanted to do the Run Against Plastic was to meet everyone across the country that then we can reach out and
Yeah.
be like, well, hey, you know enough about the topic. Here's a film that you can screen, and here's a PowerPoint, and then you also get to highlight your local efforts and how people can get involved. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
if somebody reaches out in Calgary, we'll drop a line. And sorry, the hair's going everywhere. Um, then yeah, we can. It's really that is our idea with Plastic Oceans, is to how do we get everyone on the same page? Because one thing that I got really frustrated with in the early days was how there's a lot of infighting with small organizations, and a lot of times
Mm.
it's because the stakes are so low, so everyone's fighting for the same small pot. But yeah, if we can really just play one role of at least having understanding who's where and who can
Yeah.
facilitate different things, and just share that, we can keep our team small, and there's no point to reinvent the wheel, right?
No, absolutely. And I think it's crucial for our kinds of organizations to band together because we're stronger together and we have a louder voice together. So it's very important for us to connect and yeah, be part
Yeah,
of that movement together.
consistent messaging, right? And luckily I think in Canada, that's another nice thing about moving home, is Canadians are traditionally pretty nice. So when you do have a good friendly chat,
Yeah.
we don't get a lot of like really extremist messaging consistently. I find that most people that do this for their life, whether it's basically scraping together minimum wage if we're lucky to run a small org, or it's we're doing this out of pure passion. So we're a
Yes.
little bit more polite about it and try to be more engaging and informative than pointing a finger and backing people into a corner, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's more about, hey, there's another way, and here's how you can do it, and let me help you through this process.
Hmm.
So yeah, we're pretty lucky.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you wanted to close on before I stop recording?
Yeah, I guess I would just encourage everyone to, especially in these difficult times, to be kind to each other, be kind to yourself. You might not be able to do everything you typically do to reduce your waste, but there's still a lot that you can do, and help share the message. Still engage in those conversations with family and friends. It's a great time to connect with people you haven't talked to in a while. So it's continue the good work that you do. Yeah, be mindful, be kind to yourself, and support local businesses that are doing great work.
Exactly. I mean, we can't necessarily, there's been a lot of stuff pop up with a lot of zero waste influencers that they've even in this time had to sort of pivot. But there's no better time to just do the research and find out how, once we come out the other side, we can do better, and just try to do the best you can through this.
Hmm. Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'll just stop recording and we'll
Thank
do
you.
a quick little goodbye after.